Radio Angelus, 24-hour online radio.
Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Catechesis, a series of talks that are designed to help us appreciate our church's teaching. We started last week by looking at the theology of the body, which I mentioned are a series of 129 teachings of John Paul spanning from 1979 to 1984. But today also I want to mention one person who has taken upon himself for 25 years learning and studying and has formed the Institute of the Theology of the Body. His name is Christopher West. You can check him out on Facebook. He is a master of John Paul's Theology of the Body. My task here is just to introduce you to this theology of the body so that on your own you can begin to search and discover the richness of this theology of the body. Now today I want to talk about maleness and femaleness. When we read scripture in Genesis chapter 1, we are told that God created man in his own image. In his image he created him. Male and female he created them. In fact, Pope Benedict XVI reminds us in his encyclical Deus Caritas Est that there is an interesting mythology of Plato. He says that Plato says that when Zeus, which is the god of the Greeks, created man, he created him in a spheral form. But because of the pride of man, Deus divided man. And since then, man has been in search for his other side, always looking to be whole again. Now, we don't believe in this myth, and yet this myth reminds us also of our faith and what Genesis reveals to us. Now, when God created man, we are told in Genesis chapter 2, man felt lonely, man felt empty, and it is only when God created a woman, then he exclaims, "At last this is bone for my bone and flesh for my flesh." Again appears the theology and the beauty of the body. The body as being the expression of love. How do we love without the body expressing love? So the fact that God created us male and female is to point to the fact that we are not males by accident or females by accident, as some people think. In fact, some people think that maleness and femaleness has to do with our social upbringing. Now, we must make the distinction between maleness and femaleness and masculinity and femininity. Because masculine, being a masculine, has something cultural to it, or feminine has something cultural to it. But being a male and a female is a gift from God, by which you can also be socialized to experience or to learn certain characteristics according to cultures of what being a feminine is or a masculine is. But that doesn't take away from the fact that your being born a male is part of the plan of God, or your being born a female is part of the plan of God. This is the reason why when people are confused and they are made to think that being a male or a female is arbitrary, they feel like they are trapped. So you will hear nowadays people say, "I feel that I am a female and yet I am entrapped in a male's body." And so they go in search of gender change. This is where the lies of the devil comes from. Because our maleness and our femaleness is not arbitrary. God did not just throw it in the air and then you appear male and female as you choose and want. No, it is part of who we are. And once we can embrace that, then we become more of who we are. I remind you that last week we saw that the body is not just a wrapper containing the soul, which is seeking salvation on its own. No, the body is an integral part of who we are. Jesus did not only come to save our souls, he also came to save our body as well. And we know that because he resurrected in his body and ascended with his body. And so being a male and a female is an expression of who God is. And that is why God says his image and his likeness is stamped in our being female and male. Being a male reveals an aspect of God, and being a female reveals an aspect of God. And so that these two may complement each other, we are called to always draw closer to each other. Now, many people, as do I, have a problem with the term opposite sex, because the term opposite sex seems to suggest that the male is opposing the female and the female is opposing the male. That is not what it is meant to be. This is the reason why, even up till today, there is some friction between a male and a female, because in the plan of God, this unity has been broken. And we realize the brokenness of this unity when we see in Genesis chapter 3, when God came to the garden searching for man, when man sinned. And in pronouncing the consequence of the sin, he said, you, a woman, would continuously desire your husband, and your husband would have total dominion over you. This is a disbalance of what God created. It's a consequence of our sin. Because of sin, now men look to dominate women. Now, as women try to reclaim their rightful place in society, and as God created them to be from the side of men, in other words, to be equal to men, some also push it too hard to try and dominate men. Any form of dominion is not love. Love does not seek to dominate and possess. Love seeks to give and to sacrifice. I wish you a good lunch, and may God bless you.
Radio Angelus, 24-hour online radio.